Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are going super deep on Apache Camel. The thing that makes different software systems actually talk to each other and work together. So
Really?
we've got this super cool article from Continuous Improvement, it's called, Apache Camel, the Integration Framework for Modern Applications. And it was published just yesterday, December 5th, 2024. So get ready because we're going to break down this whole world of connecting different apps and services and all that.
Awesome. Yeah, and you make it sound like fun. And honestly, it
Yeah.
really is. Apache Camel really does take away all the pain of getting your different software systems talking to each other.
Okay, so I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
But what even is Apache Camel? Do I need a computer science degree to understand this?
No, not at all. It's
Yeah.
actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
Imagine you have all these different apps, but they all speak different languages. Kind of like
Yeah, Nolan.
a UN summit, but nobody brought a translator.
Yeah.
Apache Camel IS, that translator. It's basically this open source framework, kind of like a toolbox.
Yeah.
But it has everything you need to get these systems to communicate.
Oh, okay. So it's like a universal adapter for the software world. I like that. But this article keeps mentioning enterprise integration patterns, or EIPs. And to be honest, that just sounds really complicated.
Yeah, it sounds scary, but it's really not.
Can you explain those, in plain English?
Yeah. Okay. Think of them like blueprints, but for solving those common problems you run into when you are trying to connect systems.
Okay.
So imagine you need to get some data from point A to point B, but along the way,
Yeah.
you need to translate it and filter some stuff out
Yeah.
and maybe even change the format. EIPs are pre-made solutions for these challenges.
Oh, so you don't have to start from scratch every time.
Exactly.
Got it. So it's like having a cookbook, but
Yeah.
for connecting different systems.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
And the best part is,
Yeah.
you don't even need to be a master chef to use them.
Yeah.
Apache Camel has this special language. It's called a domain-specific language, or DSL.
DSL, that sounds a lot less scary than writing code.
Right.
So can you maybe give me an example? How does this DSL simplify things?
Oh, for sure.
It's instead of having to write out every single step of a recipe, using all these complicated culinary terms, you can just use shorthand phrases like chop or saute or simmer.
Okay.
So it's a lot more efficient and easier to read.
So developers can focus on what they're trying to achieve instead of getting bogged down in the actual code itself.
Exactly. And the article mentions that Apache Camel has over 300 components.
300.
Yeah, so it's this huge library of pre-built connectors
Hmm.
for all sorts of different systems and technologies.
Wow. Okay. So 300 plus components sounds great, but doesn't that also make Camel super complicated to manage? How do you even know where to begin with all of that?
Yeah, I can see how that could be intimidating.
Yeah.
But that's actually where the framework really shines, in
Yeah.
the community. There's tons of documentation, lots of examples, and a very helpful and active community that can help you figure things out.
And honestly, the fact that there's so many components, it actually means that Camel can handle almost any integration scenario you can imagine.
Wow.
Doesn't matter if you're working with databases
Yeah.
or message brokers or cloud services. Camel could probably talk to it.
Okay, so it's a universal translator for the digital world. I like that. And this article also mentions a bunch of other features like flexibility,
Yeah.
lightweight design, and cloud-native readiness. It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it really is.
So maybe we can dive into those a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Remember when we were talking about DSLs?
Oh, yeah. The shorthand instructions for integrating beta?
Right. Well, Apache Camel actually offers different types of DSLs.
Like here?
You can use Java or XML or Kotlin or even YAML.
Wait, so you can choose your own flavor of instruction?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
It lets developers pick the language they're most comfortable with, so it
Yeah.
makes them more productive.
Nice. Okay, what about this lightweight thing? What does that even mean in the software world?
Okay, so think about it like this. You wouldn't use a giant truck to deliver just one letter,
Yeah, that would be overkill.
right? And Apache Camel is kind of the same way. It's designed to be super efficient
Okay.
and not bog down your systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it can run in a lot of different places, from small apps to
Right.
those huge microservices platforms. And it never adds any unnecessary bulk.
So it's really nimble.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. And then there's this cloud native readiness thing. That's a popular buzzword these days, but is it really that important?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It basically means that Apache Camel is designed to work really well in the cloud, like Camel. It works with tools like Kubernetes,
Okay.
which helps manage all those containerized apps everyone is talking about.
Okay, so containers I get. It's like packing up your app into a little box.
Exactly.
But Kubernetes, can you explain that one a bit more?
Sure. So imagine Kubernetes is like an air traffic controller. But for all those containerized apps, it manages where they go, how they scale,
Yeah.
and makes sure they all work together smoothly.
Oh, okay, so it keeps everything organized and running smoothly.
Exactly.
Okay, so Camel is designed to work in this world.
Yeah.
That's cool, but all this is very theoretical. What about real-world situations? Like,
Yeah.
when would someone actually use Apache Camel?
Oh, there are tons of real-world situations. Let me give you some examples.
Okay, awesome. Let's hear them.
So one really cool use case is in healthcare. Like imagine you have a hospital
Mm.
and they have this old patient record system, like one that's been around forever, since before the internet was even a thing.
Oh, yeah. I can picture it. Clunky interface. Maybe even some floppy disks lying around.
Exactly. And now they want to connect that system to a new online patient portal so people can access their records online.
Okay.
But the two systems are like totally different. They speak different languages.
Right.
And Apache Camel can bridge that gap. It can translate the data between those two systems.
So it's like taking that old dusty filing cabinet.
Yeah.
And making it accessible from your smartphone.
Exactly.
That's awesome. What other examples are there?
Well, think about online shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you order something, and then you suddenly start getting all these shipping updates and recommendations for other products
Yeah.
and loyalty points.
Yeah.
All that stuff happens because different systems are talking to each other behind the scenes.
Right.
And Apache Camel is often the one making those connections happen.
Wow. I never really thought about how much is going on behind the scenes of like a simple order.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, what else?
Another area where Camel is really useful is in building something called event-driven architectures. This is where systems react to events as they happen,
Okay.
using message brokers like Kafka to distribute those events.
Event-driven architectures. Can you give me an example? Like,
In the real world.
sure. Imagine you're running a ride-sharing service, like Uber or Lyft. Every time a driver's location changes, that creates an event,
Okay.
and that event needs to be processed, which might trigger other actions, like updating a map display for riders, or sending notifications to people nearby.
And Apache Camel can handle all of that. All that complex routing of those events.
Okay, so it's like a super efficient air traffic controller for data.
Exactly.
Cool. So we talked about how routes are basically the heart of Apache Camel, like the pathways the data takes.
Right.
But how does that actually work, like, in practice?
Okay. Remember those DSLs we were talking about?
Oh, yeah.
The shorthand instructions. They're used to define those routes.
Okay.
And actually, the article we're looking at has a perfect example of a simple route written in Java DSL.
Oh, cool. Can you walk us through it?
Sure. So the code looks like this.
Import. Dot filter.
Oh.
Dot import.
Important messages.
No, that's
Well,
it.
that first part from file.input, that means that Camel is going to pick up files from a folder called input.
Okay. So it's like checking the mailbox.
Yeah, exactly.
The next part.
The next part, .filter.contain. That's where Camel acts like a filter.
Oh, okay.
It's checking the content of each file and only letting through the ones that have the word important in them.
So it's like a bouncer at a club,
What?
only letting in the VIPs.
Exactly.
What happens to the VIP?
Well, the next line, jms.queue.important messages. That sends those files to a special queue called important messages.
Okay.
This queue is like a priority inbox, so those messages get handled quickly.
Got it.
And then finally, that last part,
Oh.
file.output, that just copies those files to another folder called output, just for record keeping.
Okay. So this one little code snippet does a lot.
It does.
It reads files, filters them, sends them to a queue, and then copies them to another location.
Yeah.
It's like a whole data processing factory.
That's exactly
But this is just a simple example.
right. In a real-world scenario, you might have data coming in from all sorts of places.
Yeah.
And you might need to do all sorts of things with it, like transform it, route it to different places based on its content, integrate it with different systems.
Right.
And Apache Camel can handle all of that. That's impressive. So, earlier we mentioned Camel 3 and Camel K as these modern enhancements. Can you explain what those actually are and
Yeah.
what they bring to the table?
Yeah, sure.
What's the difference?
So, with Camel 3, think of it like taking your old car and giving it a complete engine overhaul.
Okay.
It's still the same car, but now it's faster, smoother, and can handle tougher terrain.
Right.
So it's basically an upgrade. That makes Camel more efficient and modern.
Got it. What about Camel K?
So, Remember that cloud native world we were talking about?
Yeah, with the containers and Kubernetes.
Right. Well, Camel K is like giving your car off-road tires
Yeah.
and a navigation system that are specifically designed for that terrain.
Okay.
So it lets you run camel routes directly on Kubernetes,
Right.
which lets you take advantage of all the cool features Kubernetes offers.
Like auto-scaling and containerized deployments.
Exactly.
So it's like taking the power of Camel and combining it with the power of Kubernetes.
That's pretty awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so after all of this, I have to ask, why should someone choose Apache Camel? Like, what makes it stand out from all the other integration tools out there?
That's a great question. And honestly,
Mhm.
it's not just one thing. It's a combination of things.
Okay.
First off, it makes developers super productive.
How so?
Well, remember those DSLs?
Yeah.
They make it so much easier to write integration logic.
Right?
So developers can focus on what they want to do
Yeah.
instead of getting bogged down in the low-level details.
That's all about simplifying things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, Apache Camel is built on those enterprise integration patterns we talked about.
Okay.
Those EIPs, they're basically proven solutions to common problems.
Right.
So you're not reinventing the wheel every time.
So you're avoiding those common pitfalls.
Exactly.
What else?
And maybe most importantly, Apache Camel is always evolving.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's open source, which means there's this huge community of people who are constantly working on it.
Yeah.
Adding new features and making sure it stays up to date with the latest technologies.
So it's not going to become obsolete anytime soon.
Nope.
That's good.
It's a very dynamic and adaptable tool.
Okay. So it sounds like Apache Camel is a pretty powerful and versatile tool with a lot to offer.
Yeah, it is.
But before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on this topic.
Okay.
Like, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that integration doesn't have to be this scary, complicated thing.
Okay.
Apache Camel provides a framework and a set of tools that make it a lot more approachable and manageable. And honestly, even kind of fun.
Yeah.
It lets developers solve real-world problems, and it lets companies connect their systems in a way that's seamless and efficient.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we have.
You've talked about what Apache Camel is,
Yeah.
how it works, real-world use cases, and even its potential impact on the future.
It's been a great discussion.
It has. But, exploring these topics always leaves me with even more questions.
Yeah, it really makes you think about like the bigger picture, how much we rely on this seamless data exchange in pretty much every aspect of our lives, like ordering groceries online, booking a flight. It's all about connecting systems and making that data flow smoothly.
Right. It's everywhere.
And as our world just becomes even more connected, I feel like tools like Apache Camel, they're going to be even more important.
Oh, absolutely. They're the ones making all this connectivity possible.
And it makes me wonder, with Camel's ability to connect basically any system, how could it shape the future of data exchange and automation?
That's a great question.
Like, what kind of world could it help create?
Well, imagine a world where businesses, they can just easily integrate their systems and share data securely and efficiently and automate those really complex workflows, all thanks to powerful tools like Apache Camel.
So it's like breaking down all those walls between data silos.
Yeah.
Creating this interconnected digital ecosystem.
Except what kind of impact would that have on businesses and individuals?
I mean, the possibilities are huge. For businesses, it could mean being able to move faster and be more efficient and uncover new insights from all their data.
Right.
They can streamline their operations, improve customer experiences,
Yeah.
and make better decisions based on data.
That makes sense.
And for individuals, it could lead to more personalized services. Like, imagine everything you interact with just works seamlessly.
Yeah.
And it's all personalized to you.
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing.
And technology just fades into the background, making our lives easier and more connected.
That's definitely a vision I can get behind. So Apache Camel could play a key role in all of that.
Oh, for sure.
It's a pretty exciting time to be working with these technologies.
Yeah, it really is.
So I think we've come to the end of our deep dive into this fascinating world of Apache Camel. We've learned what it is, how it works, seen some real-world applications, and even thought about its potential impact on the future.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation.
It has. And hopefully you've all enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed talking about it.
Definitely.
And if you want to learn more about Apache Camel, there are tons of resources online. And the Apache Camel community is super welcoming and helpful. So dive in, explore, and see what you can create. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.